Hi. Today we're diving into a topic that might feel a little uncomfortable, but it's important. Imagine this. You're sitting in a room full of buttons. Behind the wall, there's a person. You can't see him, but you can hear his voice. And every time he makes a mistake, you're told to press a button. When you press it, he screams, as if he's being shocked with electricity. At first, it's mild, then stronger. And then he starts begging you to stop. Would you keep going? Really? What would you do? Okay, let's rewind a little. This was a real experiment. It was conducted in 1961 by a psychologist named Stanley Milgram, right after the trial of Adolf Eichmann, a Nazi who organized the deportation of Jews to concentration camps. At the trial, Eichmann kept saying, "I was just following orders." And that made Milgram wonder, how far are normal people willing to go? Just because someone told them to? Maybe evil isn't about monsters in the dark. Maybe it's about us when we hear, "You have to." Before the experiment started, participants were told it was a study about memory. They were told that electric shocks could help improve learning, that it boosts memory. So people believed they were helping science. One person was the teacher, the other, the learner. The learner had to memorize word pairs, and the teacher tested him. Every mistake meant an electric shock. With each mistake, the voltage increased, 15, 30, 45, all the way to 450 volts. But here's the trick. The learner was actually an actor. There were no real shocks, but the teacher didn't know that. As the shocks got stronger, the actor began to scream in pain. He begged the teacher to stop. He shouted things like, "My heart hurts. I have a heart condition. Let me out, I can't take it anymore." Eventually, he stopped responding at all. Silence, no screams. No movement, nothing. And still, many people kept pressing the button. In the room with the teacher was a man in a white lab coat, the experimenter. He spoke in a calm voice and said things like, "Please continue. The experiment requires that you go on." And guess what? How many people do you think went all the way to 450 volts? 65%. Almost 2 out of 3 people. You might be thinking, okay, 35% refused. Good for them. But they didn't stop right away. They didn't say no after the first shock. Most of them stopped only at 300 volts or more. Do you realize how much that is? For comparison, a regular power outlet has about 220 volts. And even then, it took real emotional struggle to say, "I won't do it anymore." That means most ordinary people were willing to hurt someone just because a man in a white coat said so. No one threatened them. No weapons. No violence. Just calm instructions. And the moment you hear, "I was just doing my job," the responsibility shifts. The scary part is, these weren't monsters. They were just like us. They were suffering. They sweated, trembled, bit their lips. Some even begged to stop the experiment, but they kept pressing the button again and again. Because of authority, because of the setup, because if everyone's doing it, it must be okay. And because the responsibility was divided. You didn't invent it. You didn't start it. You're not the one who decides when to stop. Welcome to the psychology of obedience. There are several reasons. Authority, a lab coat, a confident voice, a sign on the door, social norms. If this is how it's set up, it must be right. Shared responsibility. I'm just a small part of the system. Gradual steps. You start with 15 volts, almost nothing. then 30, then 45. You get used to it, and at some point, you can't stop. Evil often doesn't show up all at once. It comes in small steps. Milgram got a lot of criticism. They said the experiment was too stressful, unethical, but it was repeated many times with changes, and most of the time people still obeyed. Even in 2009, a French TV show recreated it. Contestants punished a man with shocks. He was an actor. 80% went all the way. This time, it wasn't a scientist. It was a game show host. That's the power of television. Some people thought, well, maybe they just picked people who were more obedient by nature. But no, the experiment was repeated many times, with different people, different backgrounds, different ages, and the results stayed the same. Others said, a woman would never do this. She'd stop. But later versions of the experiment included women, and many of them also went all the way. It wasn't about gender or personality. It was about the situation. Be honest, what would you have done? Chances are the same as most people. Not because you're bad, but because that's how our brain works. And that's not a verdict. It's a reason to reflect. When you say, I have to, who's really deciding? When you stay silent because everyone else is that really your choice? When you follow instructions blindly, is that you or someone else acting through you? What can we do with this knowledge? Notice when someone's shifting responsibility onto you. Ask yourself, why am I doing this? Do I agree with it? Build your own inner compass so that when something feels wrong, you can say, stop. Yes, obedience is easier, but being human means having a choice. So, if tomorrow someone in a suit with a badge and official papers tells you, press the button, everything's under control, what will you do? Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to write in the comments what you think about this experiment. Good luck.